Hello and welcome back to Rage Gaming and more Monster Hunter Wilds talk. Today I want to talk to you guys about the state of Wild post-launch. You know, we're a good 3 months in now. What are the weaknesses but also strengths of the post-launch content? This works well because we're kind of getting a 1.5 title update right now that is the May update. We have slightly more information about that and hey, actual information about that first Capcom collab, which is of course Street Fighter, which has turned out to be a lot more than anyone seemed to expect. So we're going to take a look at everything, starting with the base game. Firstly, the fact that we started the game with a weapon progression system, a meta, the Artian meta of course. The fact that we have a weapon grind with the Artian weapons from the start is a big deal. If you aren't aware, it took some time before something like this would happen in World. It was both Title Update 2 for Base World and then Iceborne before you actually got Kulve Taroth or Safi Jiva. These brought in the systems of a weapon grind and kind of established itself as that meta. For Base World, that was Kulve Taroth and her weapons. There was this massive list of potential weapons, real RNG involved, but there was a lot of meta good options for both status and element. The problem here was that you could run it so many times and maybe get like a few of the best options that exist, but then it'd be for the wrong weapon. So there were some big issues with that system. It wasn't until Iceborne's version that kind of learned from that and really changed the game with Safi Jiva. That siege hunt with the weapon meta introduced there included more reliable options. So if you killed the monster with a hammer, you were guaranteed to at least get one hammer drop. It might not be like the meta thing you're looking for, but at least it was a thing. Further, the RNG of the actual drop was reduced, and then you got the improving of the weapon, the awakening system, just like our Artian system these days that this was clearly inspired by. So while you would awaken a Safi Jiva weapon, you take an Artian weapon in Wilds and reinforce it. With the awakening system with Safi Jiva, you get to choose from 3 options and then do what you do now. Attack boost, sharpness, affinity, and element, whichever you want, as well as some other options. The better detail with Safi Jiva's system there is the fact that you get 3 options to choose rather than just get what you get when you reinforce an Artian. And if it lists 3 things you don't want, then you can choose not to take any of them, spend the resources you get from hunting Safi Jiva, and re-roll it and see what it offers this time. Compared to that, the Artian system doesn't have anything so specifically helpful, but you can get all of the reinforced materials back to re-roll it. You're just left with the relics and the crafting of the weapon. So it's very clearly inspired by that system with some pros and cons compared to that. The thing is, we already have it in the base game of Wilds. We have the Artian weapons from the start. What we're expecting in Title Update 1 then was an update to this system to make it more forgiving or more interesting, and we haven't had that yet. So if there isn't something like that in Title Update 2, it would definitely be a problem, but there's no denying that the base game having the weapon progression system already was a big deal in Wilds. So it's a pretty big win there. Another aspect of the endgame would be farming the decorations you need, so you do that by doing specific investigations with say offensive decoration drops in good number or defensive ones. And then also you could do the melding, which would make tempered monsters extra worth hunting because of course you could break the targeted wounds, which would drop the bloodstones used for that melding. They also made changes not long after launch to encourage monster hunting as your best relic option instead of spamming rare gathering to meld that instead. Compared to base world, by getting the specific decorations you needed like attack boost or say crit boost, it was a nightmare in base world to do that, where it's very attainable and reasonable in Wilds by comparison. The relic farm itself has its ups and downs, definitely an interesting system. The fact that you can hunt any of the tier 3 monsters and have good relic options was good, but definitely a weakness of the system was the fact that Tempered Arkveld offered double potential rewards. So if you weren't hunting Tempered Arkveld in that hunt, even if a duo hunt, then the rewards were literally halved. And so that encouraged just Tempered Arkveld as hunts for a long time there. Obviously Title Update 1 really helped that by introducing Zoshia, as well as Tempered Mizu and the 8-star version, both having that double reward potential. And in the upcoming May update, we know that all the Apexes and gore magala are going to get their 8-star version for better relic farm purposes. But it has taken some time, so base game wise that was a problem. I would say overall for the base game, the weapons are pretty solid. Most of them are performing incredibly and are thought of fondly. Only a few have been falling behind or having key issues, which is starting to be addressed with the May update. We know Hammer's getting its big update. We know that they've promised to tone down some aspects of the overperformers while buffing up other aspects to kind of make a balanced update. And there are some underperformers that could use some love, like say Hunting Horn and its issues right now. For a weakness of base endgame, I do think Apex monsters weren't worth enough, as they're a really cool concept, but you know, just didn't have the great relic rewards. On that note, the wound mechanics were meaning monsters were a bit too easy to interrupt and CC, reducing their challenge. This was especially fell in the tempered monsters with their set scar wounds, leading to guaranteed wounds and free knockdowns and control because of it. We know the May update is going to introduce better rewards, but we also know it's going to introduce increased challenge, health, damage, and importantly, wound resistance, which is going to greatly change those fights and make them a lot more challenging. I do think this is funny because a lot of people are worried about gore having these changes. They already saw gore as one of the hardest things in the game, and so with these changes in the May update, gore may become the hardest thing in the game. Finally, for base world, I want to reference the fact that we got layered armor from the start in full in a really forgiving way. You just have to craft the master rank version of the gear and that's it. So to be fair, that does encourage going and hunting all kinds of monsters to get the parts that you want, to be able to craft the pieces you want for the purpose of layered armor. That was great. On the downside, there's been no layered weapons of any kind so far, which definitely sucks. Obviously, they're not going to do a full-on layered weapon system initially. We didn't exactly expect that, but with the Artian meta and that kind of overwhelming the visuals of what everyone runs, I did hope they do something, and soon with an event quest or one of these minor updates to introduce some kind of layered weapon. In the past, it wasn't until the expansions that you saw layered weapons, both say Iceborne and Sunbreak. And so I'm really hoping that in the title updates to come, we do get some kind of layered weapon system sooner than later. Now they know the outcry for it. But now let's talk about title update 1 and the wins and kind of negatives that had. Of which, to be fair, there weren't many negatives to this update. It was very good. So title update 1 introduced Zoshia, which was the challenge people were asking for at the time. A lot of people responded very positively to this challenge, and personally, I felt like it hit the nail on the head. It's not quite something like Fatalis or Elatrion of that level of challenge, but it kind of scratched that level of itch with interesting mechanics. The gear was pretty decent, like the minor meta update for armor definitely worked in, but the weapons were overall, I would say, just a nice option for players that are behind that don't already have a perfect Artian for the weapons at the moment. So I do think that's been great for a lot of people, and in regards to the fact that we don't have layered weapons, it gave people a thing to use that wasn't as good as proper perfect Artian, but not that far behind, at least in relevance to hunting Dragon Week monsters, and the fact that Zoshia is one, that was a really good choice. You also had Tempered Mizutsune, which I found a surprising genius move. The fact that it's basically Soul Seer with those mechanics, the challenge, people were getting one shot by the backflip slam. I saw a lot of funny clips at the time. I found it a very fun addition when I remember seeing Mizutsune being the first monster of title update 1 and felt very disappointed. The fact that they introduced a tempered version that was basically just Soul Seer and then ramped up the difficulty, that is great because it shows awareness of where the player base is at and what they desire at the moment. Outside of that, we had some fun with the event quests that they've been running so far. I think they've been doing a good job providing things we need. Spring Blossom, though, was really interesting, lasting those couple weeks, and turned out to be a great way to farm armor spheres. Maybe you needed hunter rank, ingredients, all kinds of stuff. Bringing back most of the event quests if you missed any to get the layered stuff. Really encouraging play during that time. Not only did they make the hub look super nice because of it, but they also brought back the original spring event cosmetics and introduced some really cool new ones. So it was a huge win there. Arch-Tempered Ray Dao I had a great time with, and the fact that they made it a challenge with a pendant reward that looks cool, something about that encouraged the player base to really push themselves. And while there's a lot of people that feel 13 minutes was overly forgiving, and surprisingly a good amount of people are like 13 minutes is too tight still, feels like they hit the nail on the head for the average person to be satisfied with that, which I think is good. Really, the only downside of Title Update 1 for me was the lack of layered weapon of any kind, even event quest, even Spring Blossom related, something, anything, I would have been happy. We didn't have anything. There was no update to the Artian meta in regards to the system there, like say giving it awakening mechanics or adding a new layer to it, anything at all. that was a shame. So I'm really hoping for something like that in Title Update 2. That brings me to Title Update 2 though. Josh was telling me that World to Title Update 2 was 83 days after launch. And right now, we're basically at that for the Wild's launch at this moment. And we have no news. So it's very likely going to reach 100 days and beyond. And if it does turn out to be just Legaicrus, people are definitely going to be upset. That's why I've talked about it in recent videos, like maybe there's going to be something more to it. Title Update 2 in World and Iceborne was the Siege update, like I said. Kulve off, Safi Jiva. Legaicrus could get some interesting mechanic changes. We're not going to be underwater fighting him, but maybe they'll do some siege related stuff with him swimming underwater and some larger progression to the fight. So hopefully there is an unexpected update here where they do introduce a siege or something longer standing, some kind of artian weapon update to progress that system. That's the main hopes that I have for Title Update 2. But since we have no information about that, it's pure question mark. Thankfully though, before that, we're getting basically Title Update 1.5 in the May update, which is incredible. As we know, they're updating the 4 apexes and gore magala to be 8-star, double reward potential, increased damage, health, and that all important wound resistance. They're all going to be much more challenging, much more rewarding, and worth going and fight for the fun of that update. We have the weapon update. People are going to be trying hammer in its new version, of which we've speculated a lot of hopes for the changes on that. And I just hope they do a good job. But to be fair to them, they definitely did with insect glaive, lance, SNS, and switch axe from beta to launch with those changes they made then. We now have the roadmap updated thanks to the Collab trailer they just put out, reminding us of what came in Title Update 1, but then telling us for this May update, we got the Street Fighter 6 special collaboration, which is apparently always going to be available. We've got those extra tempered monsters at 8-star that we just talked about, and other additional features and adjustments. To be fair, that's likely the endemic list they've mentioned before and further weapon balance. But it would be awesome if we got that hammer update and a surprise update for a different weapon. Like I've said before, I think Hunting Horn deserves it quite a lot. Otherwise, for the Summer Title Update 2, it still says additional monster, which we know is Legaicrus. But it is interesting they've not just put it there in that slot and kept it as additional monster. It makes me wonder. And then yeah, we're also getting the Summer Seasonal event for the Hub update. But of course, in the May update, we're getting that Street Fighter collab that's turned out to be way more than people expected. The trailer looked awesome. Akuma is back, and yeah, some people have had some negative reactions to that because they may have just looked at the images and not watched the trailer and realized how much there is to it. We were fearful that this collab would basically just be a couple of skins that you would unlock by doing one event quest, and that'd be it. Instead, we have completely new mechanics and playstyle, and people are fondly calling it like the 15th weapon. We at very least know there's going to be a new side mission called Ultimate Strength and multiple arena quests called Demonic Strength and True Strength for more rewards than that. Available at Hunter rank 21 and above. In this, we'll be able to unlock the Akuma Hunter armor set, but then also the layered equipment too. What they're calling the Blanket Chan Palico full armor set and layered equipment, which looks really cute. And some cool stuff for your Hunter profile, to be fair. So by equipping the armor set or the full layered armor set, you're able to use the unique item of Akuma and also gestures that perform his different fighting moves, shown as different combinations. They've explained that the attack power of these is determined by your main weapon you've got equipped, but if you wear the full armor set, that'll boost these attacks significantly more compared to using the layered armor set, which is going to be less invasive, right? So if you want to engage with this gameplay, you actually want to wear the armor. It'll mean those assisted combos and other actions gain stun properties, and the drive impact action is that offset effect. But there's a lot of potential here. How could that moveset flow into normal gameplay? Like if you're just wearing the layered set but using a normal weapon, can you weave it in and actually benefit from that? To me, that suggests that you will get the offset effect if you're wearing the layered set, hopefully. And if so, that means it'll work with normal weapons. This could give weapons a second offset option, but I think SNS is going to be a big one here because you could use the item while unsheathed and like quite uninvasive compared to other weapons, right? They could be the best option for that. The last thing I want to mention is this topic of player count and the ups and downs of it. There's this topic that isn't that big, to be fair. I only saw it on Twitter, but I'd like to talk about it. It was this post by Zenny Hunter, who had a reasonable reference to this fact, that Wilder's concurrent player count is a lot less than it was, obviously. Asking the simple question like, is this a point of concern? since it was so high at launch and was such a big success. With that unbelievable peak of nearly 1.2 mil on just Steam, don't forget, all the consoles and such. Whereas right now the 24-hour peak is about 55,000. By no means is that bad, by the way, but compared to the 1.2 million, obviously it's a lot less. I think it's completely normal for a game to do this, but people are making comparisons now to World's player count, which still remains really good, by the way, with this 24-hour peak of 30,000. Yet on PC, its all-time peak was just over 300,000, which is 1/4 of what we have for Wilds. So why are the player numbers kind of similar? Some people suggested that we should be concerned that it's at this state, but I just see that as completely unreasonable. What matters is the success of the game and their ability to create an expansion. I want the title updates to be good, I want them to encourage longer play, but I'm also completely okay with a game being the experience that it is, and then being something fun to come back to, maybe with some friends or solo or whatever, when you feel like it, or when they've just injected some new content into it. Which is the point of the title updates and the mini updates between, which is a lot to be getting so regularly. During those times, we see the player base shoot back up again, and the numbers are still very good. As posted by Kogath on Twitter, Wilds is still selling really well, selling over 10 million units total now. They're still seeing growth in the sales, and it still affects things like World and Rise. They're still selling well too. Overall then, I do think this is the best base game if you compare to base World and god, base Rise in particular, that was so affected by, of course, COVID at the time. It's just funny that this always happens. You've got a base game that's complete with all its updates, an expansion that's complete with all its updates, and then you get the next Monster Hunter game that's just the base game, no title updates or anything, and people make the comparison so directly. It is a stark contrast that does create this feeling, but I still find it an unreasonable take. Wilds has been a fantastic experience, and the launch numbers and how long that hype lasted shows that. Is it a terrible thing that the player base isn't as high now? 50,000 when there's no new content is pretty incredible, and when there is a title update, or say this May update, it's going to shoot up again. I do hope that they do a good job with the title updates and create more lasting content. I hope that's going to land in Title Update 2, where to be fair it did in World and Iceborne. I just worry that it's not actually going to be a bigger update for that purpose. And I do think it's fair to say that people are going to be upset if it's just a hunt Lagiacrus and there's not something more to it than that. But yeah, let me know your thoughts on all of it, and we'll be covering the May update and eventually Title Update 2 as it happens. For now then, I've been Hollow, you've been you. Thanks for watching, see you next time.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.